LNG bridge energy. We have today with us Rudolf Huber, president at LNG Austria. I will ask him about the company in a second. And this is me. And welcome to the podcast, Rudolf Huber.
Thank you.
Explain us a little bit about your company. What you do in LNG Austria?
Well, LNG Austria is not exactly a company. We are a non-profit organization. That means we are truly not making money out of whatever we do. Our aim is more or less to lobby for getting LNG adopted as a fuel for the vehicle industry. And our most important claim to fame is that we started out about 5 years ago when we started lobbying for a tax change in the Austrian fiscal regime to make the taxation of LNG as a vehicle fuel way more fair. Because the problem with LNG is it's because it's lighter than most other fuels, especially diesel, and taxation is by weight, by volume. I'm sorry. It's LNG by kilometer of use was taxed 1.6 times higher than diesel fuel, which makes no sense because it's the cleaner fuel. So the cleaner fuel should be taxed less. And we were able to pull this off about 3 years ago. So we got the tax change, and now we are continuing working on improving conditions for natural gas fueled vehicles, not only in Austria, but also in the surroundings. We have a lot more work in the East now.
Perfect. Before we go to the specific points, please explain to us, to everyone, LNG and NG, natural gas and liquid natural gas. What's the difference? What's the temperature you should go to obtain LNG?
Actually, in LNG and natural gas, they are the same thing. They're like brother and sister. It's just that LNG is a liquid and natural gas is a gas. The problem with gases is that they're very, very bulky. That means they're very hard to store and they're very hard to transport. You usually need a pipeline or you need an underground storage facility. And if you want to use them in a vehicle, the only two options you have is either you compress them, but that means you need a very heavy tank, a high pressure tank on board in order to have a more or less meaningful amount of natural gas on board. If you want to go a little further with that, you liquefy them down. That means you cool the natural gas to minus 161 degrees Celsius. Then it becomes a cryogenic liquid, and it reduces its volume by about 600 times.
Wow, that's a lot.
Which means that now you have an energy-dense liquid that you can fuel pretty much. I mean, it's not exactly the same thing because at minus 161 degrees Celsius, of course, you have specific tanking applications, but those have been around now for more than half a century, longer than I'm alive now. And they are not a technical problem. Those are things that we are used to. But now you can put them in a tank, very much like diesel. It takes about the same time to fill up on LNG as it takes for diesel. And you have very similar, let's say, distances that you can go with one tank filling. There were trucks that were able to go way beyond 1,000 kilometers with one single filling, which means long distance transport is only possible with LNG, not with CNG.
It's interesting because 1 cubic meter of LNG is equivalent of, in terms of diesel, how much diesel volume? In terms of energy?
We usually say it's when you use it in a vehicle, that would be about 1 liter of diesel would be the equivalent of about 1 kilo of LNG. And 1 kilo of LNG is about 2.2 cubic decimeters. So it's volume-wise, it's bigger. It's a little more than the double, but the equivalence is here. But LNG burns a little bit more efficiently and a lot cleaner, and you don't need a lot of the cleaning appliances that you usually need in a diesel engine. Yeah, the
Mhm.
particle filter and all those things, you don't need that on a natural gas engine because it burns already extremely cleanly. That means the energy loss associated with those appliances plus the weight that is associated with that because the engine becomes smaller is they contribute in savings as well. So it's but again, the equivalence would be about 1 kilo of LNG to 1 liter of diesel, roughly. It's not an
Perfect.
exact comparison, but it's good enough.
Perfect. Perfect. Let's talk a little bit about geopolitics because natural gas and LNG are very strong in terms of geopolitics influence, including Europe, United States, and Russia, Nord Stream. So, explain to us how do you see geopolitics challenges related to LNG and LNG?
Uh, there are two LNG worlds out there, and I will now concentrate on the big LNG world, which is not the vehicle fuel industry, but which is those big ships that come into big harbors that feed LNG into the natural gas grid in order to do power production, industrial warmth, domestic energy. This is the big LNG world, and that's where I originally come from, actually.
Oh,
And geopolitics, of course, it has an impact because natural gas is not as liquid a world as is crude oil. If today you have a tanker of crude oil, if somebody, for example, a Saudi prince, yeah, decided to gift you one tanker full of crude oil and tell you, Armando, take it, it's yours, do with it whatever you want, and it's already on the water, yeah, and you use it the way you want to, you won't have a big problem finding immediately a buyer. You will immediately know, okay, this is my quality of crude that I'm having, this is about the price that I can expect, and you will find a buyer for that pretty quickly. It's a very liquid market, yeah? And you have a lot of professionals that will be able to help you to process that tanker, so you transform that tanker into money for you. With LNG, that will be way more difficult. Very simply because first, LNG is a smaller world than crude oil is. Second, there is not so much overhang capacity in LNG as there is in crude oil. That means most of the tankers, they are already engaged in trade. It's very hard for them to be pulled out and be used for something else. There's not as much spot capacity as there is for crude oil. And LNG is a boiling liquid. That means you cannot park LNG forever on the seas. You can do that with crude oil. Sometimes they park it for months or half a year on the water. With crude oil, that's not a big problem. With LNG, it's boiling away.
mhm.
It's sometimes done out of let's say security of supply reasons. Sometimes countries, they park an LNG tanker strategically in order to be able to push it into the grid when they need it because they have peak demand. But this is very exotic. It's not being done every day. So of course, LNG is much less able to absorb any kind of disruption inside the supply chains than crude oil is. That being said, LNG is competing in a way with pipeline gas, of course, because they are brother and sister, and they are more or less exchangeable. And you could say, in a sense, that whenever pipeline gas actually takes a hit, LNG comes and has a better market. Yes and no. Very simply because the competition between LNG and pipeline gas is largely imagined. There are markets that are much better with pipeline gas. There are others that are much better with LNG, or sometimes it's not even possible to have pipeline gas. Let's take Japan, for example. You can't bring pipeline gas over there. They need to do LNG. So if the option doesn't exist, yeah, then what can you do? And so this is one thing, but obviously the situation right now that you have, especially with Ukraine and Russia,
Mhm.
has changed the game very, very dramatically. Then again, not so much, because if you look at what's happened in the LNG world over the last 15 years, we had Fukushima. putting everything on its head. When after Fukushima happened, we needed suddenly way more LNG because Japan had to switch its nuclear reactors off, and Germany decided to get out of nuclear altogether. So suddenly we needed way more LNG than we had in the world. We had China when it started to really balloon. The demand over there was just going absolutely crazy. And before that, most people forget that North America right now is the lens of cheap gas. Well, I can remember when I joined the gas industry about 2 decades ago, North America was the most expensive place for buying natural gas on earth. It was before the shale revolution actually changed everything over
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
And there were LNG import projects up and down both coasts, just in order to bring some of the most expensive LNG into the continent that you have ever seen. This whole thing has turned on its head. So LNG has been through a couple of very radical ups and downs, and there will be more. So the Ukraine situation is just one more for in LNG terms. In geopolitical terms, of course, it's a horrible situation, but
yeah.
in LNG terms, LNG will absorb that again. We will have new LNG plants. The market will adjust, demand will adjust. There will be new LNG. There will be new trade patterns, but it will somehow absorb it.
But the price, comparing price between LNG and LNG, uh, what can you say about this? Is more
Well,
expensive
it
LNG?
depends. It depends what market you deliver in. If you deliver gas into the European or North American market, you got gas markets over there. So you cannot set a price that's higher than the market. Because if, for example, you dump LNG into the TTF, I mean, the TTF has a price. And if your LNG is more expensive than what TTF is going to pay you, you're going to lose money. You might still do it because you need the gas for security of supply reasons or whatever other reason you might have for that. But this is an internal calculation that only you will understand. But you always have the option of buying the gas on the TTF. So if I offer you LNG for TTF plus 1 cent, I mean, okay, let's not go to that extreme, plus 50 cents, you will tell me, why should I pay you 50 cents over TTF? I can always get the gas on TTF for TTF.
Yeah,
And that is true for every functioning gas hub. That would be true for all of North America. That would be true for pretty much anything in Europe. Pretty much, not all of it, but very much.
yeah,
The only market, if you can call it that, that is not so flexible is Asia. Asia is not one market, it's a collection of small markets that all have their own dynamics. But Asia doesn't have the possibility of storing huge amounts of gas. So they cannot prepare for a swing. So they need to take the swing out of the supply lines. That means prices there are usually very much higher. Uh, and as Asia is mainly supplied by LNG, people have an impression that LNG is more expensive, which is not true. Because if you compare, I'll give you an example. There's currently a project underway from Nigeria to Morocco, the West African gas pipeline that goes up there.
uh-huh.
And it has been introduced, and they have now said they want to finish this project until 2047, 48, something like this, some number far
Wow.
in the future when I will possibly not be alive anymore. But whatever it is, that's an offshore pipeline. That would be the longest offshore pipeline that has ever existed on this planet, and it would be one of the longest pipelines anyway. And pipelines have a nasty habit. The longer you make them, the more expensive they get. There's no point where
Uh-huh.
if you jump over that point, it becomes cheaper. In LNG, you have that point. In LNG, as soon as you have liquefaction, that's the expensive step. As soon as liquefaction is consumed, then it's actually pretty cheap to bring LNG from one point to the other. It doesn't really matter too much if your endpoint is 10 or 20 shipping days away. There will be, of course, an impact on cost because you need additional transport capacity. You will have boil off and all those kind of things. But this cost is rather, let's say, more manageable. It's not as strict as pipeline. So in the case of the West African gas pipeline, I am very sure that LNG is the way more economic option. It's certainly cheaper than the pipeline itself. But you know,
Perfect.
when a country wants a pipeline, it wants a pipeline. It's a
Yeah,
political project. It's not an
yeah.
economic one.
Yeah. Let me show that a friend for us from Lisbon is saying hola for us and for you and for me. Thank you, George Oliveira. But tell me, the operational costs for LNG is higher than for NG, and
No,
no,
why would it be?
because the cargo ships and the costs for moving ships
Well,
from United
let me
States.
give you an example.
Uh-huh,
Shipping one MMBTU of
uh-huh,
natural gas from North America to Western Europe takes
uh-huh.
about 10 days shipping.
Yeah.
I would wager that any transport company would do that for $1 per MMBTU.
Mm,
There shouldn't be a
yeah.
problem with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
You don't get Nord Stream for $1 per MMBTU. It's more expensive than that already. And we are only talking about Nord Stream. Nord Stream gets its gas from a pipeline system in Russia that itself needs to be paid. We don't know how much that it costs, very simply because it's operated by Gazprom. And Gazprom is not known for being very transparent with their pricing structure. They just tell you what it costs, and that's it. The
Uh,
whole cost stack behind it, well,
okay.
it is what it is.
Yeah, well, okay, price, but talking about risks, for instance, you have Red Sea, Suez Canal, and some very sensible points that you need to pass with cargo ships there.
Sure. And with a pipeline, you have a supplier that might switch you off. Not only the Russians did that. You had other suppliers in the past that have done that too. That means you're at the mercy of the supplier. You have no alternative anymore. Once the pipeline is in the ground, it's in the ground. Then you might have somebody who blows the pipeline up. That seems to have happened recently. Although things are not impossible anymore, an LNG ship, I'm sorry,
No
you
problem.
can blow up an LNG ship. Let's imagine some terrorist finds a way of blowing one of those vessels up. I would wish them good luck because those vessels are very, very safe. I don't really see a good way of how to actually make them explode, but well, anything might be possible. But let's say one LNG ship gets blown up. Well, that's one among multiple hundreds in the world. You'll be able
Mhm,
to cover yourself pretty quickly. Yeah?
mhm.
You might have to pay a price for that because you need to take a spot cargo, and that will be more expensive than what you get usually from your long-term contract. Yeah, but you can still get the gas. The lights are not going out, and that is way more expensive to you than losing one cargo. Yeah? And it's just one cargo. It's not the entire pipeline that's being blown up and now needs years of repair or will never come back again. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I would say pipeline is the way riskier option. Except, of course, if you have a pipeline inside your country. If you're in Brazil, for example, if you build
Yeah.
a pipeline from, let's say, I don't know,
Bolivia to Brazil, for instance, we have a very
well, you've
big
got a
pipeline.
border already between that. It's already two governments, yeah. But in North
Yeah,
America, for example, you have plenty of pipelines that never leave the lower 48. They
yeah,
don't go over any border. Yeah. You have a pipeline from Texas or from Louisiana, for example, to Florida. It's inside
yeah,
the same country. I mean, the political risk over there is pretty limited.
yeah. Very, very low. Yeah, no doubt.
But
No doubt.
if you have a pipeline that goes through one or multiple countries, let's just take there was a project in the past. I think it's still somehow in the books of transporting Nigerian gas through North Africa to Algeria and then on to Europe. It was called Nigal at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah, I you go through some of the unsafest countries in the world. I mean, how much does it take for a couple of rebels to blow the pipeline up?
yeah.
You know, it's LNG, besides it's thousands of kilometers of pipeline that you need to secure somehow. You can do that,
Yeah,
of course,
that's
but it's
right.
going to have a price. Whereas LNG facilities, you secure one harbor. That's much easier.
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
much cheaper to have.
And
And once an LNG ship is out on the high seas, pirates are not very interested in LNG.
yeah,
Those ships are hard to take.
yeah. The title of our podcast today, Rudolph, is Bridge Energy. Why people say that LNG or NG is an energy, bridge energy?
What is in bridge energy? I mean, in a sense, you could say coal is a bridge energy. Yeah, it has been a
uh,
bridge energy for 250 years. Yeah, it will maybe be bridge energy for another 200 years. We don't know that. Yeah, but anything is a bridge. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
any
when it
energy that
comes,
we have several energy sources in the left side of this graph. You are right. Only oil, petroleum is not a bridge in this case because it's not
well,
going
you
to
know, look,
electricity.
if you say it's a bridge, that means you move towards a point where you don't need it anymore.
Yeah, that's
Where do
right.
you think that point is? Do you see that point in your lifetime or in the lifetime of our youngest viewer? Yeah. Do you see it in the lifetime of my youngest son, who is a teenager? Yeah. I don't know. Where is that point going to be? The problem is that when people don't understand that is there are people out there that think we will go towards a 100% renewable world. Well,
Oh,
I would like to ask you to please wake up. It's over. Yeah? It's. I think even the most hard-headed people should have found out already that this is never going to happen. Wind and solar energy are intermittent energies. You need something to back it up. And the more wind and solar energy you install, the more natural
more
gas you
natural
will
gas
need
you need.
because it's the only reliable backup energy that you can build quickly enough in order to pick up the slack. You could do it with
So
coal, but coal
you
plants are
see,
much harder to build.
you see that can be reverted. These investments in wind and solar.
I think that wind and solar will largely go away. I think in 20 years' time, we will have a lot of wind and solar parks that will be industrial ruins.
Wow,
This is going away completely. It's a fad. It's a fad that still exists.
a fantasy.
Uh, it's a total fantasy. Yeah, it's there are regions of the world, and I'm
Oh,
talking about small regions where wind and solar makes limited sense. When you go to Africa somewhere and you go to a village that has absolutely no electricity, having electricity for a couple of hours per day and something might make sense to them because they don't have any. You can't run an industrialized nation on that. You can't run a big country on that or a big economy with tens of millions of people depending on that with high value jobs. You can't do
yeah,
that.
but that's a good point. Which energies can replace the dirty energy that we use nowadays?
Well, depends what you
Coal.
call dirty. What is dirty for you? To me, a wind energy device is dirty because if you look at the amount of mining that you need, if you
A
look at
lot.
the environmental destruction that every one of those generators needs, if you look at the solar plant where entire hillsides are completely covered with solar, this is dirty energy
This is
for me
dirty.
because you completely destroy the entire landscape. This is dirtier
Uh-huh.
than anything. Then on the other side, you take natural gas. How is that dirty? We can run natural gas
Methane.
pretty much.
No, have methane. Methane is a problem. No,
Why? Why is it a problem?
inside homes, for instance, you cannot use stoves and things like
Oh, really? You
that.
cannot?
United States, they are let's
That's
see,
being done
limiting.
all the time. But, I mean, you cannot burn virtually anything inside a home because
Yeah,
without
that's right.
actually, without airing it. Yeah. But that has been done in the past. I mean, I remember, I'm old enough to remember we had those little kerosene lamps when
Uh-huh.
I was a kid. You know, they were burning inside homes. I know, of course, it was very smelly and it was dangerous. Those things could have been
No
burned
doubt.
and anything. Yeah,
No doubt.
and
Dangerous.
but we had them. They were pretty much anywhere, and they were burning inside homes. So it's not the healthiest thing to do, but you can do that. But then again, a natural gas installation. I have a natural gas water heater here in my home, a big one. Yeah, and it's connected to the exhaust gas installation of the house. And the building where I'm living here is almost 200 years old, so it's not a new building. Yeah?
Wow,
It's
200 years.
old city center of Vienna. Yeah?
Wow.
And that means this is not a problem at all. I mean, I have been living here now for 20 years. I don't remember a
So,
case of.
so Rudolph, do you see that the world is being precipitated to ban fossil fuels because we do not have replacement for that?
Oh, we don't. Why don't we have replacement for that? Look,
Do we
when
have?
I was a little kid, I'm 55 years old now. Yeah? When I was a little kid, when I went to school, we were told the theory of fossil fuels. That means When you drive with your car is being powered by things that came out of a dead dinosaur. That's what we were told as little kids. And as little kids, of course, our fantasy just imagined I have a dinosaur in my car, and that's what I'm rolling with. That was already not very correct at the time. Now
Mhm.
we know that much of oil and gas that we have today is most likely of abiotic origin. That means it's
Mhm.
a geological process that forms oil and gas. It's not biology. That means it's not a fossil fuel. If it would be a fossil fuel, then somebody would have to explain to me how do we have entire moons full of LNG around Saturn? That are where does it come from? Because
Yeah,
if it's fossil, that means there has to be life over there, and at the temperatures that happen over there, it's very hard to imagine that we have life there. There is not one planet in the solar system, including Mercury, where we wouldn't have detected methane. Even on the moon, there's methane. Yeah? Small amounts, but it's there. Yeah? It's we have organic hydrocarbons pretty much in the entire solar system out to the Kuiper belt. We have found organic hydrocarbons on Pluto. It was once the farthest away planet. So if every single body in the solar system has hydrocarbons on it, do they all have life? Or is there maybe another origin to that?
yeah.
Maybe hydrocarbons come to be into something by something else. There are molecular clouds full of methane in free space. In space, do we have space dwelling organisms that produce methane? I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah.
So
You
there's
have a
another process that does that.
yeah, that's right. You have a comment for you here from
Yeah.
Clovis, a friend of us. The first attack, let me read here. Attack the best known energy source at the present, atomic energy. They went for oil, but sooner or later prevails that all lies about clean, reliable, renewable energy as surfacing as what they are. Lies. They call lies.
So I have a hard time reading this. Pervades and all the lies about clean. Well, look, renewable, what we call renewable energy, because it's not renewable. It's
Not
but
renewable. Yeah.
wind and solar is not renewable, because I have never seen a wind turbine growing out of the earth. It is usually built by using steel and plastics and cement, and all those things are not renewable. The same thing with solar panels. Solar panels are produced by with oil. So if you think that a solar panel is renewable, then oil is renewable too. Uh, um, I've seen a little mention of nuclear energy. Uh, the problem that we have with nuclear energy today is largely perception. Because if when I was a little kid, we had a nuclear power plant project over here in Austria called Zwentendorf. The government built it up and everything, spent the money, and when it was built, we had a referendum, and the referendum said by a slim margin that we don't want to have nuclear energy. That's why we have this dinosaur standing around in Austria. It's a museum now. Yeah, and Austria is firmly anti-nuclear energy. The problem is that it's largely perception. People have very crazy ideas about nuclear energy. They think that if they're close to a nuclear power plant, they will die, or they will grow
Yeah, that's right.
just crazy
That's
appendages
the
and everything.
perception. Yeah.
None of that is true. It's nuclear energy today. If you do it in a safe way, is a very safe form of energy. The problem is we look at things like Chernobyl, which was one of the unsafest reactors built in the Soviet Union. Even in the Soviet Union, this was an unsafe reactor, and the Soviet
Mhm.
Union was not really known for secure safety standards. And if you look at Fukushima Daiichi, which was a plant that was so old, it should have been closed 10 years before it actually blew up. They didn't invest in any kind of safety safeguards anymore. Uh,
Mhm.
it's the plan shouldn't have existed anymore. So this was criminal mismanagement. It's not a problem of nuclear energy. It's a problem of criminal managers
It's
that should go
a
to jail.
a media crime, no doubt. Media
It's a
crime.
major crime, yes, but that doesn't make nuclear energy unsafe. If you look how you want nuclear energy to be done, look at France. The
Mhm.
French have figured nuclear energy out. Most of the country runs on nuclear energy. I don't want to say that it's completely problem free, but it's significantly less problems than pretty much anything else. And France is usually safe from anything. If you look, they
Yeah,
have continuously have the lowest power prices anywhere on earth.
yeah, that's right. And Clovis is agreeing with you with your comment. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, it is. It is renewable is an energy form where the energy itself is renewable. That means it naturally springs into existence again. And
Mhm.
if we look at oil and gas, and I'm just talking about oil and gas right now, if we accept the abiotic source theory, which I think is true because otherwise nobody can explain me all those sources of hydrocarbons in the solar system. Yeah? If we accept that, then oil and gas might be the only renewable energy forms that exist on this planet, besides wood, maybe. But you don't want to run a country on wood.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh?
Look to the is in Portugal. I can translate, no problem. Portugal is also anti-nuclear, but now European Union says that it's a clean energy. Always was clean
Well,
energy, nuclear.
it's being anti-nuclear. I'm in an anti-nuclear. I'm a pro-nuclear person in an anti-nuclear country. Yeah, so it's that's a very hard position because most people that I'm living with every day are all anti-nuclear. So it's a discussion I'm not having over here in Austria because it becomes crazy very very quickly. But being anti something that makes sense, yeah, is a luxury position that you can have when everything is nice and good and you have lots of money to spend and you have lots of resources that you can tap into. But if you look at the global economy right now, there's virtually no country that's not really bordering recession. We have we believe that it was COVID and the war in the Ukraine and everything that created this recession, but that's not true. The recession that we are going through right now has been created over the last 30 years. That took a long time to build up. We have printed absolutely ungodly amounts of money in everywhere, in every Western country and in other countries as well. And this money somehow needs to expand. Of course,
Yeah,
inflation is going up at some point in time, and that's happening now. So
but
it's not going to stop in next year.
Rudolf, Austria is anti-nuclear as a country, but Germany was not anti-nuclear in the past, and not time years ago changed to be totally
Yeah,
against nuclear.
yeah,
Why?
yeah. Why? It's you want the long answer or the short answer? There's a long
The
answer.
less,
I'm currently writing now a couple of pieces on. I'm sorry for the words, but I hope you can accept it on your podcast. It's a series on idiots. The problem is that up until 1989, here in Europe, the biggest issue that we had on top of our mind was the Cold War, the standoff between the Soviet Union and NATO.
you're not.
Now, that was such an overriding concern, and people were so aware that if we are not at our best, we might actually have a real problem that kills us. People were aware of that. People knew that. Yeah? So there wasn't a lot of willingness and resources to try stupid things. People always want to try stupid things, but if something so overriding as a Cold War is breathing down your neck, yeah, you don't really have much capacity for going down your stupid reflexes. Now, since the Cold War was over, now suddenly we're all friends. Yeah. And okay, it's over. We don't need this money for safety anymore. We don't need such large militaries anymore. And now suddenly we have resources for all kinds of other stupid things. That takes time to mushroom because people don't become idiots in a second. They take
Takes
time
time.
to develop. Yeah. And so over and over, more and more stupid stuff has been allowed to creep in until we came to renewables. I mean, remember, Jimmy Carter, at the height of the Cold War, he already put solar panels onto the White House. But the problem is, this was a publicity stunt, and everybody knew it. Nobody expected at the time that the world will go solar or wind anytime soon. Everybody was absolutely sure that, okay, we'll go on the way we go on, and politicians do their publicity stunts, and that's about it. So those stupid ideas have existed all the time. They are here. They will be here at any time. But as long as the pressure from something else, from something very violent, like the Cold War, is high enough, stupid tends to be a little bit at bay. Now we don't have the pressure anymore. We thought, okay, we are all friends now. The world is one big playing field. We can do what we want and we can be stupid, no problem. So we are. And that goes on until things start to fail really, really drastically. The problem is that when you have too many idiots in power, and today we have a lot of idiots in power, then things go on because countries like the US or my own country, we're old countries. Those countries have momentum. That means we can somehow digest idiots in power for decades, but it's not
Is
going to last forever.
is not exclusive of your country. My country has a lot of them.
Oh, they're everywhere. It's a global problem. Don't worry. I've been
Global.
traveling. I once counted it. I have been to about one fourth, a quarter of all countries on Earth. I have visited, so I'm really
Wow.
widely traveled. Yeah, I can tell you one thing. I found the same number of idiots and good people everywhere, no matter where you go. It's always the same. Yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's
So,
and
do you have in Austria a green party like in Germany? And do you
yes,
have
yes, they're
Gretas, and similar people like Greta?
sure. Yeah, we have them. We have them, and they are part of the government right now. We have national elections this year. They're coming up
Yeah,
in September, I guess, and they have been part of the government for a couple of years now, and they have thoroughly wrecked the country. Really, really wrecked the country. I mean, the last government is the most unpopular that we had for the last 70 years, easily. There's not even a contest. And look again, people take stupid choices as long as they can. Once the consequences of those stupid choices start breathing down their necks, once things start seriously to fail in their lives, once food doesn't come forward anymore, people go hungry, people are cold because they can't afford heating anymore. I mean, we have issues over here like in 10 or 15 years ago, having a blackout was almost unheard of over here in this part of the world. Now it's happening. It's not happening too frequently, but it's happening. Yeah, not being able to afford life anymore, to make ends meet. Yeah, there are always people who cannot pay for life, but they usually tend to be a fringe part of the society. Now the mainstream cannot afford life anymore. They cannot pay for it anymore. Things are way more expensive than they were just 10 years ago, but wages have not gone up as much. So people have a problem, and the problems will become more and more and more. It will go up and up and up, and it will become worse until things are so bad that people say, come on, we can't take this anymore. Do whatever it takes, do whatever works, yeah, but just make this thing go away. I don't know when that moment is going to come, but it's going to come for sure. So, yes, the wind parks and the solar parks and all those things are going to go away. They're going to
yeah,
be they're gonna close down first. They're gonna go bankrupt, all of them, and then in time they're gonna be wrecked, all of them.
yeah.
And we're gonna
My
go back to sensible energy. The same thing with electric cars. The same thing with hydrogen. All those things are going to go away.
my friends pay my attention that you are grossly underestimating the stupidity of the Brazilian politicians.
Well, I find myself grossly underestimating the stupidity of Austrian politicians all the time. So it's we had a couple of chancellors, and every time we have a new chancellor, I think by myself, that must be the dumbest person on this planet. And then comes a new one who proves me wrong.
Yeah, yeah. So the
But
conclusion for my side is that I need to cancel the title of our podcast that I called Bridge Energy. There is no bridge energy.
no,
It's
it's a bridge into forever. I'm preparing a new series and a new even a website. It's called Methanopolis, the world based on methane. Very
my
simply
last
because it's clean and it's reliable and it's abundant.
Okay, let's go to the last point for you, please. If I
Yeah.
give you $100 or euros, no problem. How much dollars or euros you will apply in each energy if you are an investor?
Uh, it depends if you're a short-term or a long-term investor. It's a very difficult calculation to make, very simply because investors are not looking at project profitability per se. They are looking at returns. And if they can get their return by squeezing taxpayers through subsidies, they're fine with
Ve-
that.
Very
And there's
fast
nothing wrong. I'm
returns.
not blaming investors. They go where the money is. Yeah? And they should, actually. This is their job. Yeah? So I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming those who give the subsidies out. That means the politicians who are virtue signaling. Once the subsidies go away, and they will go away because right now people are hurting and they can't understand that you're throwing money at wind generators while people don't have food in their plates anymore. Yeah? This is a hard problem, and this is very hard to communicate. Yeah? And it's already an issue at this year's national election in Austria. It will be a very large issue at next year's national elections in Germany, and it's there will be reversals, and people will let's say be elected on a platform of we bring common sense back to politics, like Boris Johnson was elected to in the UK, and then he still turned around and became an idiot. Yeah? And everything, although things do happen, of course, but it's not going to go on forever. It's like fighting reality. You can't do that for all times. Reality comes back at you. It's like fighting against gravity. You can do what you want. You will stay up for a while. You might go up a little bit further, but in the end, gravity is going to have its way. You're going to come down again. It's very, very simple. So, if to come back to your question, if I had $100,
Yeah.
I'm a long-term thinker. So if I invest for the very long-term future. I'm not somebody who looks at 6 months or 1 year or even 5 years. When I invest for very long time periods. And there, I would certainly not put my money into wind, solar, or electric cars. All those things for me are dead in the water. I wouldn't even touch them with a 10-meter pool. When it comes to conventional energy projects, it's easy to say now invest in LNG. Well, believe me or not, I love LNG. It's my world. I really love to deal with it, and I love to work with it, and I believe it's the future of the world. Yeah? But there are stupid LNG projects out there. Believe it or not, there are LNG projects that will never make one single dollar. Yeah? They are
Wow.
out there. Why? Because companies are inherently corrupt, because company managements, yeah, what they want is a big deal, yeah, because it gives them a big bonus, a big payout, and they know that before the project becomes operational, they're going to be retired already. So they're going to have cashed into their bonus, and they leave the problems to their successors.
To the
That's
next.
happening not only in energy, that's happening in any long-term industry. And energy is a very long-term industry, because if today you kick off an LNG, a big liquefaction project, you might be in for 10 years of development and construction. That means you kick it off today, you'll be 10 years older until you see first LNG. Chances are you're not the manager in this company anymore. So you grab what you can, and you do what you can, and you sign whatever project you can, because the bonus is now. And the failure comes later, but it's not going to touch you anymore.
So $40 from this 100 you will put in LNG and
Easily, yeah.
nuclear something 30%.
Yes, yes, yes. Nuclear is LNG is the energy form you need for mobility. You need to store, and you need for mobility. But
Yeah.
the world needs an enormous amount of baseload electricity. And
Yeah.
to my mind, there's nothing better than nuclear energy for baseload electricity. So I've been told a couple of days ago, well, America wants to help Saudi Arabia to get nuclear reactors.
Yeah.
How does that make sense? They have all the oil in the world. Well, actually, in the case of Saudi Arabia, it makes an enormous amount of sense to build nuclear energy. Why? Because they have extreme baseload needs, and they're burning crude oil. So if they build up a nuclear power plant, use the power to run their extreme power needs, yeah,
Yeah.
and then free up some crude oil that they can sell on the world market, they're actually making money. So if I'm in Saudi Arabia, of course I'm building nuclear power
They're
plants.
right.
They make a
They're
horrible
right.
lot of sense for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So it's an economic calculation, actually. Yeah. So nuclear, yes, it's for me the future world is going to be oil is going to be here longer than we are alive. Yeah.
Petrochemical as feedstock for petrochemical,
Not
6,000
only for
products.
petrochemicals, even for
No,
transport and anything. Oil is going to be here
for mobility.
way longer than my children are going to be alive. Yeah?
Mhm.
Natural gas, anyway, is going to be, I mean, I think the dominant energy source besides nuclear for the next 200 years, easy. Coal is going to stay. Don't rule out coal yet. Coal is still a huge energy form, and especially in Asia, coal is not going away anytime soon,
Yeah,
even in
it's
Japan.
increasing.
Yeah?
The opposite, it's
So,
increasing.
so coal is still very good, a good investment project prospect for me. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, anything that's conventional energy, yes, I would
Perfect.
invest in it. Yeah, I would
Perfect.
look at the project, each single one, if they're good ones. But basically, it's going to be coal, it's going to be oil, it's going to be gas, it's going to be nuclear. All those things, yes, I'm going to invest, and I'm probably going to invest also into the next generation of internal combustion engines because after the electric car and the hydrogen car frenzy is over, the world will fall back onto what works, and then we'll need better combustion engines. And actually, as crazy as it might sound, after 100 and I don't know 30 or 40 years of technical development in the combustion engine, there's still a lot to be done.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
still can
yeah.
become a lot better.
Mhm. That's right.
And we
That's
can
right.
do
I
today,
agree.
if you combine, for example, a natural gas combustion engine
Mhm.
with an electricity generator and an electric car with a small
Mhm.
battery, with a very small battery, you have a hybrid. You have a hybrid that produces electricity very cheaply and very efficiently with a small engine in a methane engine. And then
Uh-huh.
you use electricity for driving the vehicle because electric cars would make a lot of sense if the battery problem wouldn't exist. It's only the battery that actually sets it up. Otherwise, electric cars would be absolutely perfect. So
Yeah,
I
that's
see that
right.
coming, especially in heavy transport. And I mean, with LNG, you're shooting for the stars because if you look for to SpaceX, for example, their new Starship runs on LNG. If you look at Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' space company, their
Uh-huh.
new rocket runs on LNG. Pretty
LNG.
much, Methalox or the LNG rocket is the new standard that goes anywhere. You know why
So,
they do it?
could I say that you hate hydrogen?
No, I don't hate hydrogen. It's just very, very. It's just no. Hydrogen is just hydrogen is dangerous. It's very, very dangerous, and it's very, very expensive. That's why if you touch hydrogen today, I would be very, very careful. I would never use hydrogen outside a very specific use case, like in the
Applications.
petrochemical
Yeah,
industry. They have specific engineers over there, and they have safety protocol that allows
yeah.
them to deal with this.
That's right. That's
Hydrogen
right.
is hugely dangerous. It's an
The
extremely
safety
reactive
issues. Safety
molecule.
issues.
It makes everything brittle. So containing it is very, very hard.
Yeah, that's
Transporting it is very hard. That's why nobody does it. Most
yeah.
of the hydrogen that's being used today, it's being generated on site and being used immediately because nobody wants to transport or to store hydrogen. It's a
Yeah,
very,
that's
very
right.
hard problem to have.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's
And
complicated, not
there
simple.
is there are two ways, safe ways to store hydrogen. One of them is turning it into water, but then you can't use it as an energy carrier anymore, or you turn
Uh-huh.
it into methane, which is natural gas.
Yeah,
So that means every cubic meter of methane of natural gas that you're producing is
mhm,
actually natural stored hydrogen, nothing else.
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. Perfect. Thank you so much, Rudolf Huber, president at LNG Austria. It was a pleasure for me. It's a
Thank you.
surprise with your concepts, and you brought some
Thank
good
you. You're
thoughts for
welcome. It
us.
was a pleasure to me.
We'll have more. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Amanda. Ciao.